They found the last rancher's body in pieces across 3 states. That's how the Mexican cartels send messages. But when they set their sights on a quiet Montana farm in Ironwood Valley, they're about to learn what true terror feels like. Wade. Thorne isn't just another aging rancher with a shotgun and a no trespassing sign. He's a nightmare they thought was just a military legend. For 30 years, he was death itself, the most lethal Delta Force commander in U.S. history. His missions were so classified that even the CIA denied their existence. His body count was so high that terrorist organizations created a bounty worth millions, but no one ever collected. They called him Phantom because his victims never saw him coming, and those who did never lived to tell about it. The cartel thinks they're about to take another easy farm. Instead, they're walking into a killing field designed by a man who turned warfare into an art form. This isn't just a story about defending land. It's about how the most brutal cartel in the Western Hemisphere is about to become a cautionary tale. In just 5 blood-soaked days, one retired operator and his hand-picked team of elite warriors will remind the criminal underworld why some legends should stay retired. The cartels are used to being the predators, but they're about to learn what it feels like to be the prey. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning frost crunched under Wade Thorne's boots as he walked his property line. Dawn was breaking over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. His German shepherd Atlas trotted beside him, alert and watchful, as always. At 65, Wade still moved with the fluid grace of a much younger man, his eyes constantly scanning his surroundings. Old habits that had kept him alive through 3 decades of combat. "Something's not right, boy," Wade muttered, kneeling to examine fresh tire tracks in the mud. Atlas growled softly in agreement. The tracks were deep, made by heavy vehicles, and they weren't from any local trucks he recognized. Sarah Bennett, his closest neighbor, pulled up in her weathered pickup. "Wade, thank God you're out here. Did you hear about the Hendersons?" Wade straightened, brushing dirt from his jeans. "What about them?" "They're gone. Just packed up and left last night. No warning, nothing. But this morning I saw men at their place. Big black SUVs, guys who don't look like they're from around here. Cartel." Wade's voice was calm, but his mind was already racing through scenarios, analyzing threats, forming plans. Sarah nodded, her hands gripping her steering wheel tightly. "That's what they're saying in town. They've been moving up from the south, buying up properties. Those who don't sell, well, they find other ways to persuade them." Wade's jaw tightened. "Have they approached you yet?" "No, but Miller's place. Went last week. Same thing. Mysterious buyers, too much money to refuse. Those who stick around say they're using the farms for distribution routes." "Makes sense," Wade said, his tactical mind already mapping it out. "Isolated properties, legitimate. Cover for vehicle traffic, storage facilities already in place." Sarah leaned out her window, lowering her voice. "Wade, these aren't ordinary criminals. They're organized, well-funded. The sheriff's out of his depth and nobody else will stand up to them." Wade patted the side of her truck. "Don't worry about me, Sarah. I've dealt with worse. Just be careful. They're targeting this valley systematically. Won't be long before they come knocking on your door." As Sarah drove away, Wade whistled for Atlas and headed toward his barn. Inside, beneath the ordinary tools and farm equipment, lay a hidden cellar he'd installed when he first bought the property. Old paranoia, his friends had called it. Wade called it preparation. He lifted the false floorboard, revealing a cache of equipment he'd hoped never to use again. Military-grade communications gear, weapons, tactical gear, everything he'd need. If things went south, he'd spent his entire career planning for worst-case scenarios. This wouldn't be any different. Wade's phone buzzed, a text from an old contact in law enforcement. "Cartels moving hard and fast. 7 properties taken in the last month." Watch your back. He pocketed the phone and moved to his office, pulling out detailed maps of the valley. His property sat at a crucial junction, controlling the main road and overlooking 3 different approach routes. No wonder they wanted it. The sound of vehicles on the main road caught his attention. Through his window, he watched 3 black SUVs roll past his gate, moving slowly, too slowly, reconnaissance, marking the next target. Atlas, Wade said, scratching his dog's ears. They don't know who they're dealing with. He spent the rest of the morning making calls to old teammates, men who'd fought beside him in places that didn't officially exist, carrying out missions that would never see the light of day. KNX, it's Phantom. Remember that favor you owe me? Time to pay up. Wade, been a long time. How bad is it? Cartels moving into the valley, taking farms, setting up distribution networks. They'll be here soon. A low whistle from the other end. Need some backup. Might not hurt to have the old team together again. One last mission. You know we're not as young as we used to be. Wade smiled grimly. Neither are they. Call the others. We've got work to do. By afternoon, his plans were in motion. 4 of his old team members were en route. Knox Raven, Winters their sniper. Cyrus Blast, Alvarez demo expert. Zan Ghost, Voss communication specialist. Nash Kestrel their medic. Together, they'd face down warlords, terrorists, and armies. A cartel wouldn't know what hit them. Wade walked his property again as the sun began to set, this time with different eyes. Not as a farmer, but as a battlefield commander. Every hill, every tree line, every approach, they could all be used. The cartel thought they were targeting an old man's farm. Instead, they were walking into a kill zone designed by one of the most experienced special operations commanders in history. Atlas barked suddenly, alerting Wade to more vehicles approaching, the same SUVs from earlier this time stopping at his gate. Wade straightened his back, adjusted his worn baseball cap, and prepared to play the role of a simple farmer. Let them think he was harmless. Let them underestimate him. It was a mistake they would only make once. 5 men emerged from the SUVs, their expensive suits out of place against the rugged Montana landscape. Wade counted 2 more staying with the vehicles, hands concealed beneath jackets. Atlas growled softly beside him, but a gentle touch from Wade kept him quiet. Felix Eliasandro Reyes led the group, his polished boots crunching on gravel as he approached. His smile was practiced, professional, but his eyes were cold as winter. "Steel, Mr. Thorne, beautiful property you have here." Felix extended his hand. Wade took it, noting the man's grip, too firm, trying to establish dominance. An amateur's tactic. "What can I do for you, gentlemen?" Wade's voice was friendly, measured, playing the role of a simple farmer, while his mind catalogued every detail. 2 men moving toward his barn, trying to be subtle about it. One by the gate with a radio. Military training, but sloppy. They'd grown too comfortable. The encounter triggered a memory. Kandahar, 2002. Another group of men who thought they were the predators. They'd found Wade's team in a village, thought they had them cornered. 12 hours later, international news reported a mysterious explosion. No bodies were ever found. "We represent an investment group," Felix said, gesturing to the valley. "We've been acquiring properties in the area, expanding operations, you might say. Your land, it has certain features that interest us." Wade leaned against his fence post, the picture of relaxation. Inside, he was marking fields of fire, cataloguing weapons, noting their stances. Ex-military, at least 3 of them. The others were muscle, used to intimidating civilians. "Not interested in selling," Wade said simply. "Land's been in my family too long." Felix's smile tightened. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. We're prepared to offer significantly above market value. 3 million cash. More than generous for a ranch this size." Wade scratched Atlas behind the ears, buying time to observe the 2 men by his barn. They were checking sightlines, defensive positions. Not real estate investors. Advanced team. Mapping the property for an assault, another memory surfaced. Colombia, 1997, a cartel compound similar to this valley. They'd had better security, better training. Hadn't mattered. Wade's team had gone in like ghosts, left nothing but ashes. "Money's not everything," Wade replied. "Some things aren't for sale." The friendly facade cracked slightly. Felix stepped, closer, lowering his voice. "Mr. Thorne, let me be direct. This valley is changing. Progress, you might say. You can be part of that change and profit from it, or... Wade's voice remained calm, even as he noted the subtle shift in the men's positions. Surrounding him, standard intimidation formation. "Or, you might find this valley becoming very unwelcoming. Accidents happen, especially to stubborn old men who don't know when to take a good deal." Wade straightened slowly, allowing just a hint of steel to enter his voice. "Sounds like a threat, Mr. Reyes." Felix's eyes widened slightly at the use of his name, a name Wade shouldn't have known, a calculated slip to let them know he wasn't as ignorant as he appeared. "Simply stating facts," Felix recovered quickly. "The valley is changing. Fighting it would be unwise." One of the men by the barn called out in Spanish something about security cameras. Wade had let them spot the obvious ones, hiding his real surveillance system much more carefully. "Think about it," Felix said, producing a business card. "You have 24 hours. After that, the offer becomes significantly less generous." Wade took the card, noting the fake company name. "Standard cartel front." "I'll sleep on it. See that you do." Felix turned to leave, then paused. "Beautiful dog. German Shepherd, yes? Would be a shame if something happened to him." Atlas growled, picking up on Wade's tension. Wade kept his hand, gentle on the dog's head, but his voice carried the weight of 3 decades of combat experience. That would be a very serious mistake. Something in his tone made Felix hesitate, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and Wade saw genuine surprise. They had expected an easy mark, a simple farmer they could bully or buy. Instead, he caught a glimpse of something else, something that set off warning bells. As the cartel men retreated to their vehicles, trying to maintain their confident swagger, Wade's mind was already spinning through scenarios. His hand unconsciously touched the hidden knife at his belt, the same knife that had saved his life in a dozen Black Ops missions, the same knife that had earned him his call sign when he'd taken out an entire enemy patrol without making a sound. They thought they were dealing with an old rancher. They had no idea they were facing a man who'd turned violence into an art form, a ghost who'd haunted the nightmares of terrorists and warlords, a man who'd spent his life preparing for exactly this kind of fight. Wade watched the cartel men drive away, already planning his next moves. His phone buzzed, a text from KNX. 4 hours out, teams assembled. Wade typed back, "Make it 3, company's already knocking." Inside his house, Wade activated his real security system. Cameras hidden in trees covered every approach. Motion sensors monitored the perimeter, everything fed into a command center he'd built in his basement. A holdover from years of planning for worst-case scenarios. He pulled up, satellite images of the valley marking known cartel properties. 7 farms taken in the last month, each one strategic. His land was the missing piece, controlling the main valley access point and providing clear lines of sight for miles. His phone rang again. Sarah, her voice tight with worry. "Wade, they were at your place, weren't they? I saw the SUVs." "Just a friendly business proposition," Wade replied, checking his weapon cache. "Nothing to worry about. Don't lie to me." Miller tried to stand up to them. Next day, his barn burned down. Day after that, his wife's car crashed on a straight road. No witnesses. "Sarah, listen carefully. Next few days, stay with your sister in Missoula. Don't tell anyone you're going." "Wade, what are you planning?" "Better you don't know. Just trust me." After hanging up, Wade descended into his cellar. The hidden room was exactly as he'd left it, weapons and equipment maintained and ready. He began checking each piece methodically, muscle memory taking over as he field-stripped and reassembled rifles. Atlas whined softly from above. Wade paused, listening. Another vehicle approaching, different engine sound. He checked the cameras, local sheriff's department, Deputy Mike Hayes, young and out of his depth, but honest. Wade met him at the gate. Hayes looked nervous, shuffling, his feet. "Mr. Thorne, heard you had visitors today. Word travels fast. Listen about the others. Miller, the Hendersons. We know what happened, but we can't prove anything. These people, they're connected. Evidence disappears. Witnesses change. Their stories." Wade nodded. "And you're here to advise me to take the deal?" Hayes looked ashamed. "They own half the valley already. Fighting them, it's suicide. Appreciate the warning, Deputy, but I can handle myself." As Hayes drove away, Wade's phone chimed again. A message from Zan. "Intercepted comms. Full assault. Implanned. They're not waiting 24 hours. Wade smiled grimly. "Perfect. Let them come in force. Let them think they had the advantage." 3 decades of combat experience had taught him that overconfident enemies made mistakes, and he'd learned long ago how to turn those mistakes into opportunities. He had 3 hours until his team arrived. 3 hours to turn his farm into a fortress. The cartel thought they were dealing with a stubborn old man. By morning they'd realize their mistake, but by then it would be far too late. The sound of engines echoing through the valley caught Wade's attention. Through his security feeds, he watched 4 vehicles approaching from different directions. His team using old tactics to avoid being tracked. Knox's black pickup came first, followed by Cyrus in a weathered Jeep. Zan and Nash arrived minutes later, their vehicles covered in dust from back road driving. Wade met them in the barn, away from prying eyes. 20 years melted away as his old team assembled, their movements still synchronized after all this time. Knox, his sniper, carried his custom rifle case like it was part of him. Cyrus brought enough explosives to level a small town, all carefully concealed in construction equipment cases. Zan's communication gear looked civilian, but could crack military-grade encryption. Nash's medical kit was upgraded but familiar. He'd patched them up through worse situations than this. "Just like old times," KNX said, his voice gruff but warm. "Though usually we had a government backing us up." "Government would just slow us down," Cyrus replied, already examining the barn's structure. "Nice setup, Wade. Good sight lines. Multiple. Escape routes. You weren't kidding about being ready." Wade spread a detailed map across his workbench. "Cartel's been systematic, taking key properties, establishing distribution routes. They're not just running drugs, they're setting up a permanent operation." Zan connected his laptop, bringing up intercepted communications. "They're professional, ex-military in their ranks, mostly Mexican special forces, but they're arrogant, sloppy with their security." "Their mistake," Nash observed, organizing his medical supplies. "How many are we dealing with?" "Main forces, 30 men," Wade pointed to marked locations. 2 separate groups. First team's the muscle. They handle intimidation, arson, accidents. Second team's their professionals, actual combat experience, proper tactical training. KNX examined the terrain through the barn door. "Kill zones perfect. Natural bottleneck here. High ground advantage. We can funnel them right where we want them." "They'll come in force," Wade warned. "No more pretense of being businessmen. They've got heavy weapons, armor, probably air support." "Good," Cyrus grinned, pulling out his demolition plans. "Been a while since we had a proper fight." "This isn't just about holding them off." Wade's voice turned serious. "We end this permanently. Not just here. We shut down their entire operation in the valley." The team sobered, recognizing the tone. It was the voice that had led them through impossible missions, that had brought them all home alive when the odds said otherwise. "Why'd you really come?" Wade asked, looking at each man. "You could have stayed retired, stayed safe." Nash spoke first, his medical bag open beside him. "Remember Kosovo? That village we found after the militia went through? Some things you can't walk away from. Some fights need fighting." "Cartel took my cousin's farm in Texas," Cyrus added, checking detonator wires. "By the time anyone could do anything, it was too late. Not happening again, not here." Knox just shrugged, but his eyes were hard. "You called, that's enough." Zan's voice crackled over their earpieces. "Movement at the Henderson place. They're assembling their force. Thermal imaging shows at least 20 vehicles." "They're not subtle anymore," Cyrus observed, finishing his last explosive trap. "Coming, in like an army." "Good," Wade replied. "Means they're scared. Scared men make mistakes." The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the valley. Wade stood with his team on the porch watching the day fade. They were no longer young men, but age had brought something else. Experience, patience, the kind of wisdom that only comes from decades of combat. "KNX, I want you in the North Tower. Best sightlines, and they won't expect anyone up there. Cyrus, rig the barn for remote detonation, make it look like a tempting target. Zan, keep monitoring their comms. The moment they split their forces, we take advantage. Nash medical station in the basement, but be ready to move. This gets hot, we'll need you mobile." Each man nodded, understanding their roles without need for further explanation. This wasn't their first impossible mission, just maybe their last. "One more thing," Wade added, his voice carrying the weight of command. "We're not just defending a farm. We're defending every family in this valley, every person these bastards would victimize. We do this right, we do it clean, and we do it permanent." As his team moved to their positions, Wade checked his weapons one final time. Atlas sat beside him, alert and ready. In the distance, he could see dust clouds rising, the cartel's forces assembling. They thought they were preparing to raid an old man's farm. Instead, they were walking into a trap laid by some of the most experienced combat veterans alive. "First wave moving out," Zan's voice was tight. "ETA 20 minutes. "Copy that," Wade replied, signaling to his team. "Remember, let them get comfortable. Let them think they have the advantage. Then we show them what real soldiers can do." Knox's voice came through, cold and professional. "Got the high ground covered. These boys have no idea what they're walking into. Reminds me of that night in Fallujah, remember, Wade, when those insurgents thought they had us cornered, until they found out why they called you Raven." Cyrus chuckled, setting his final charges. "Never seen men run so fast from a shadow." "Save the war stories," Wade commanded, though his voice held a hint of amusement. "Cyrus, status on the perimeter?" "Like Christmas morning, boss. They take one wrong step, we'll light up the sky. Got something special planned for those SUVs they love so much." Zan cut in, his voice tense. "Vehicle count up to 30 now. They're bringing everything they've got. Multiple heavy weapons spotted. These aren't street thugs, Wade. This is a military-grade assault force." "Good," Wade replied, checking his night vision equipment. "Means they'll understand exactly what's happening to them when it all goes wrong. Nash, you set? Medical bay prepped, though something tells me we won't be the ones needing it. Got enough supplies to patch up an army, or what's left of one after we're done." Through his thermal scope, Wade watched the cartel forces assembling. Their formation was professional, he had to give them that. 3-point advance, heavy weapons in support positions, even air cover with a helicopter standing by. They'd clearly studied military tactics, but they'd learned those tactics from manuals and training camps. Wade's team had written those manuals, had learned their craft in the world's deadliest battlefields. Tonight, the cartel would learn the difference between soldiers and warriors. "Remember Kandahar?" KNX asked as they waited, his voice soft over the comms. "That night raid that went sideways when the whole city lit up? Never saw so much firepower in my life," Cyrus chuckled, "until Wade called an audible. Turned their own defenses against them," Nash added. "Still don't know how you knew that would work." Simple, Wade said, checking ammunition stores. People get predictable when they think they have the advantage. Cartels the same way. They're used to civilians, used to easy victories. They won't be ready for what's coming. The Montana sun disappeared behind the mountains, plunging the valley into darkness, but darkness had always been their ally. In the shadows, Wade Thorne wasn't a farmer anymore. He was Phantom again, the ghost that hunted other ghosts, and he was about to remind the cartel why that name had once struck fear into the hearts of far more dangerous men than them. Moonlight silvered the Montana landscape as Wade watched the cartel convoy approach through his night vision scope. 20 vehicles moving in formation. Someone had trained them well. Too bad they'd forgotten the first rule of combat. Never fight on ground your enemy has prepared. They're splitting up. Zan's voice crackled through the comms. 3 teams. Main force coming up the central road, 2 flanking units trying to circle wide. Knox's voice was cold and professional from his sniper's nest. Got eyes on the lead. Vehicle. Officer types in the back seat. Want me to take the shot? Negative, Wade replied. Let them get comfortable. Spring the trap on my mark. The convoy's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the road to Wade's farm. They moved with confidence, no attempt at stealth. Why bother? They thought they were hunting an old man. Contact in 2 minutes, Cyrus reported. Charges are set. These boys are in for a surprise. Wade watched through his scope as the first vehicles reached his outer perimeter. The cartel soldiers emerged with military precision, weapons ready, moving in practiced formations. Felix Eliasandro. Reyes stepped out of an armored SUV, directing his men with hand signals. Spread out, Felix ordered in Spanish. I want this place surrounded. No one gets out alive. They're deploying heavy weapons, Zan warned. 50 cals on the trucks, RPGs. In the second wave, Wade's voice remained calm. Stick to the plan. Let them commit. The cartel forces advanced steadily, moving past the first line of Wade's defenses without noticing them. 50 meters, 40, 30. They were almost in position. Sir, one of Felix's men called out. No movement in the house, thermals showing nothing. Felix grabbed his radio. Check the barn. He has to be here somewhere. 3 cartel soldiers approached the barn, weapons ready. Wade watched them through his scope, counting down in his head. This was the moment that would set the tone. Now, Wade commanded. Cyrus detonated his first series of charges. The ground erupted beneath the lead vehicles, sending them airborne in a shower of dirt and metal. Before the dust settled, Knox opened fire from his hidden position. 2 cartel soldiers dropped before they realized they were under attack. What the hell? Felix shouted, diving for cover. Where's the fire coming from? The night exploded into chaos. Wade's team had prepared kill zones throughout the property, and now they put them to use. Every time the cartel forces tried to rally, they found themselves caught in interlocking fields of fire. 3 trying to flank east, Knox reported. Calmly, his rifle cracking in the darkness. Got them! Cyrus responded with a series of explosions that drove the flanking team right into Nash's line of fire. Wade moved like a ghost through the darkness, years of combat experience guiding every step. He caught 2 cartel soldiers by surprise, disarming, one and using him as a shield against the other's fire. Both went down without a sound. Who are these people? A cartel soldier screamed over their radio. This isn't right. They're too organized. Felix's voice cut through the chaos. They're professionals. Fall back to the vehicles. Reform defensive positions. Too late, Wade whispered, triggering another set of charges. The explosions cut off their retreat, trapping the cartel forces. In the kill zone, Knox's rifle spoke again. Technical at your 3 o'clock, Wade. Gunner down, but drivers still up. Wade rolled behind a tractor as 50 caliber rounds tore through the air where he'd been standing. The technical's driver was good, keeping the vehicle moving to avoid return fire, but he'd forgotten to watch his flanks. Cyrus, Wade called. Time to use that toy you brought. A rocket streaked through the darkness, striking the Technical's engine block. The vehicle flipped, cartwheeling off the road in a ball of flame. "Damn, I missed that," Cyrus laughed. "Just like Damascus." "Stay focused," Wade ordered. "They're regrouping." Felix had managed to rally his remaining men behind the wreckage of their vehicles. They had training. Wade gave them that. Even caught by surprise, they were adapting quickly. "Zane, what's their strength?" Wade asked, moving to a new position. 18. Still combat effective. They're calling for reinforcements. Second wave is 30 minutes out. "They won't last that long," KNX stated flatly, his rifle ending another cartel soldier's attempt to flank their position. Wade watched Felix directing his men, noting their movements. They were trying to establish a base of fire, create space for their reinforcements to arrive. Standard military doctrine. Time to show them why standard responses get you killed. Cyrus, hit their rally point. Knox, watch for runners. Nash, be ready. Some of them are about to need medical attention. Multiple explosions ripped through the cartel's position. Wade moved through the chaos like a wraith, his suppressed rifle ending threats before they could materialize. 2 decades of fighting had taught him the value of economy of motion. No wasted movements, no hesitation. "Contact front," a cartel soldier screamed. "He's inside our perimeter." Wade's reply was swift and silent. 3 more went down before they could turn to face him. Felix was shouting orders, trying to organize a defense against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. "Who are you?" Felix screamed into the darkness. "What kind of farmer fights like this?" "The kind you shouldn't have threatened," Wade replied, his voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. The cartel's first assault was falling apart. What had started as a confident attack had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Of the original 20 vehicles, 8 were burning. Of the 40 men Felix had brought, less than half were still fighting. "Pull back," Felix ordered. "Full retreat. Get back to the rally point." "I don't think so," Wade said calmly. Knox's sniper rifle cracked 3 times. The remaining vehicle's tires exploded, stranding them in the kill zone. "El Fantasma is going to kill us all," Felix muttered, realizing the trap they were in. "El Fantasma, who should have done his homework," Wade replied, stepping out of the shadows behind Felix. "Should have asked why no one had ever successfully attacked this farm." Felix spun, raising his weapon, but he was too slow. Wade's strike was precise, efficient. The cartel leader dropped unconscious as his remaining men surrendered. "Area secure," Knox reported. "No runners. Nash, we've got wounded." "Zan, what's the status on their reinforcements?" "Still inbound, 20 minutes out. Bigger force this time. Looks like they're bringing everything they have." Wade nodded, zip-tying Felix's unconscious form. "Good. Let them come. First wave was just to remind us of what we can do. Next wave is where we show them who we really are." The team gathered briefly, checking weapons and reloading. The night was still young, and this was just the beginning. The real battle was still to come, but now they were warmed up, synchronized, ready. "Just like old times," Nash said, treating a wounded cartel soldier. "Better," Wade replied, checking his ammunition. "This time we're fighting on our terms, on our ground, and this time we're finishing it for good." Through his thermal scope, Wade surveyed the carnage. The cartel's elite force lay in ruins. Their vehicles destroyed, their men captured or incapacitated. But this wasn't about destroying them. This was about sending a message. "Sir," Nash reported, finishing another field dressing. 16 prisoners, 3 critical but stable, rest are walking wounded." Wade knelt beside Felix, who glared up at him with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Now then," Wade said quietly, "let's talk about El Fantasma." "Go to hell," Felix spat, then switched to Spanish, cursing. "Your choice," Wade replied in perfect Spanish, shocking Felix into silence. "But your reinforcements are coming into my kill zone in less than 15 minutes. Would be a shame if they made the same mistakes you did." Zan approached, laptop in hand. Intercepted their communications. Phantasma is coming personally. He's pissed, bringing in heavy weapons, professional contractors. This isn't going to be like the first wave. Felix laughed, a harsh sound. You're all dead. El Phantasma doesn't leave witnesses. He'll burn this whole valley to get to you. How many? Wade asked calmly. Enough to kill you 10 times over. Former. Mexican Special Forces, Colombian mercenaries, cartels' best killers. Wade cut him off. I meant, how many families have you terrorized? How many farms have you taken? How many accidents have you arranged? The question caught Felix off guard. For just a moment, his arrogance cracked, showing uncertainty. Beneath. Knox, Wade called. What do you see? The sniper's voice crackled over their comms. Multiple vehicles, different approach vectors. They're being smart this time. Thermal shows at least 40 troops, maybe more. Multiple heavy weapons teams. They're spreading out, Cyrus added. Won't fall for the same trap twice. Wade turned back to Felix. Last chance. Help us end this with minimal bloodshed, or watch more of your men die needlessly. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Felix said, his voice dropping. El Phantasma. He's different. He enjoys the violence, the killing. You should run while you can. Already met men like him, Wade replied, standing. In places much worse than this, they're all the same in the end. Zan's voice cut through the night. First elements reaching the outer perimeter. They're moving slower, checking for traps. Wade moved to his team, their faces illuminated by burning wreckage. They'll come from multiple directions this time, looking to overwhelm us with numbers and firepower. Knox, I want you mobile. Change positions after every few shots. Cyrus, time for the secondary charges. Zan, keep their comms scrambled. Nash, keep the prisoners secure. Keep them alive. Remember, Wade added, they're expecting us to be tired, maybe wounded. They think the first fight cost us. Let them think that. Let them get overconfident. A new voice cut through their radio frequencies. Deep, commanding, speaking Spanish. With a Sinaloa accent, El Phantasma himself, directing his forces, found their command channel, Zan reported. Want me to jam it? No, Wade smiled grimly. Let them talk. Fear works better when they can share it. The team split up, moving to predetermined positions. Years of working together meant they barely needed words. Each man knew his role, trusted the others to play theirs. Through his night vision, Wade watched the cartel's second wave advancing. Their movement was more professional now, leapfrogging. Between cover, maintaining proper intervals. El Phantasma had indeed brought his best. Contact in 2 minutes, Knox reported. Got eyes on their command element. El Phantasma's in the black Suburban, 3 vehicles back, heavily guarded. Cyrus, Wade directed, give them something to think about. A series of explosions ripped through the night, not aimed at the cartel forces, but illuminating the battlefield. In the sudden light, they could see what they were walking into. Defensive positions covering every approach, kill zones arranged with mathematical precision. Mother of God, one of the cartel soldiers whispered over their open channel. The whole property's fortified. Keep advancing, El Phantasma's voice commanded. They're just trying to scare us. Press the attack. Wade's voice cut into their frequency, speaking calm Spanish. 43 minutes ago, I had twice your number in body bags or zip ties. That was when I was being gentle. Last warning, withdraw or meet the same fate. The cartel forces hesitated, their advance faltering. El Phantasma's response was immediate and brutal. He shot one of his own men who had stopped moving. The next. One who shows cowardice dies by my hand, he roared. Forward, kill them all. Well, Wade sighed, switching back to his team's channel. Can't say we didn't try. Cyrus, got something special for them? The demo expert replied. Remember that trick we used in Fujairah? Do it. The night erupted in carefully orchestrated chaos. Explosions chain-reacted across the battlefield, but these weren't meant to. A kill. They were precise, tactical, cutting off escape routes, separating units from each other, creating confusion and panic. They're spread too thin, Knox reported, his rifle cracking methodically, taking targets of opportunity. Wade moved through the darkness like a ghost, his movements calculated and precise. Two cartel soldiers never saw him coming. One moment they were advancing, the next they were unconscious. "Who are you people?" El Fantasma's voice roared over the radio. Wade's response was cold and precise. "You wanted this farm so badly. Welcome to it. Let me show you why they used to call me Phantom." The battle was about to enter its true phase. The cartel had brought their best, their most hardened killers, but they were about to learn the difference between killers and soldiers, between thugs with guns and men who had spent decades perfecting the art of warfare. In the distance, El Fantasma was shouting orders, trying to regain control of a battlefield that was rapidly dissolving into chaos. But Wade had fought in places where chaos was a weapon, where darkness was an ally, and where fear could be turned against those who wielded it. "Remember," Wade told his team, "let them come to us. Let them think they're winning. Then show them why you don't threaten a Delta operator's home." The real battle was about to begin, and this time there would be no holding back. El Fantasma's assault hit like a thunderstorm. Automatic weapons fire lit up the night, heavy-caliber rounds tearing through Wade's outer defenses. His forces moved with professional precision, using suppressing fire to cover their advance. This wasn't the sloppy attack of the first wave. This was a coordinated military operation. "Multiple teams, 9 o'clock, Knox reported, his rifle responding with measured shots. "They're using proper fire and maneuver. These aren't cartel thugs." Wade watched through his thermal scope as El Fantasma's men established support positions. "Former Mexican Special Forces," he confirmed. "See how they move? They've done this before." A rocket streaked through the darkness, exploding against Wade's barn. The structure held, reinforced exactly for this scenario, but the message was clear. The cartel wasn't playing anymore. "They're probing our defenses," Cyrus called out, "looking for weak points. Want me to discourage them?" "Not yet," Wade replied. "Let them commit more forces." El Fantasma's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You cannot hide forever. We will. Burn everything you have." Wade's response was a precisely placed shot that shattered the cartel boss's spotlight. Darkness reclaimed the battlefield, darkness that Wade's team had prepared for, had trained in for decades. "Three-man team trying to flank east," Knox reported. "I see them," Wade responded. "Cyrus, give them something to think about." A series of charges detonated, not to kill, but to herd. The flanking team found themselves pushed right into Nash's field of fire. His suppressed MP5 spoke 3 times. 3 bodies hit the ground. "They're coordinating better now," Zan warned. "Multiple channels, encrypted comms. These guys are professionals." Wade moved like a shadow through his property, every step calculated. 2 cartel soldiers were setting up a machine gun nest. Good position, good fields of fire. They never saw him coming. The first went down to a throat strike. The second to a precision takedown he'd learned in advanced hand-to-hand combat. "Command vehicle moving," Knox called out. "El Fantasma repositioning. Strong security detail." "Let him," Wade replied. "He's looking for a pattern. Let's give him one." The battle shifted into a new phase. El Fantasma's men were good. They'd clearly fought in urban combat before, but Wade's team had written the book on this kind of warfare. Every time the cartel forces thought they'd found an advantage, it turned into a trap. "RPG team at your..." 2 o'clock, Zan shouted. Wade rolled behind cover as rockets screamed overhead. The explosions were massive, professional-grade weapons. These weren't street thugs with black market gear. This was military hardware. "Knox, priority target. Take out those RPGs." "Bit busy," the sniper grunted. "Got 3 teams trying to flank. My position." Cyrus on it. More explosions lit up the night. The RPG team disappeared in a controlled blast that sent their weapons flying but left them alive. Precision demolitions, work that only decades of experience could achieve. El Fantasma was getting frustrated. His men were dying or being captured, yet they couldn't seem to get a solid fix on their opponents. Every advance met resistance from unexpected angles. Every tactical advantage evaporated before they could exploit it. "Push forward," he commanded. "There are only 5 men. We have the numbers." "Numbers don't mean much against ghosts." Wade's voice cut through their command channel. "How many men are you willing to lose tonight?" A burst of automatic fire answered. Him. Wade didn't flinch. He'd already moved from that position, anticipating the response. 2 more cartel soldiers went down to precise shots from his suppressed rifle. Then something changed. El Fantasma's voice came over the radio, but this time it was different, personal, filled with recognition. "I know that move," he said. "I've seen it before. Kandahar 2002, the night the mountain burned." Wade froze for a split second. That operation wasn't in any books, wasn't supposed to exist. Only someone who had been there would know. "You were there," Wade replied, pieces falling into place. "Mexican Special Forces, attached to our unit. You were the liaison officer, Miguel Ramirez. And you were the shadow that moved through our enemy's camp like death itself." El Fantasma laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The Great Phantom. I learned much from you that night watching you work. Now I get to show you how well I learned." The revelation hit Wade like a physical blow. Ramirez had been good, one of the best foreign operators he'd worked with. But something had happened after that mission. Reports said he'd gone rogue, disappeared, into the criminal underworld. Now here he was, transformed into El Fantasma, using everything Wade had taught him to terrorize innocent people. "You betrayed everything we stood for." Wade's voice was cold with contempt. "I evolved," El Fantasma shot back. "You taught me that fear was the ultimate weapon. Now I use it to build an empire." "You're about to learn the difference between student and master," Wade replied. "Nox, Cyrus, Plan Shadow, just like Kandahar." His team responded instantly, understanding. El Fantasma might know some of Wade's tricks, but he'd never seen everything. There were tactics they'd held in reserve, movements they'd perfected long after Ramirez had gone rogue. "You're old, Phantom," El Fantasma taunted. "This isn't your war anymore. The world has changed." "You're right about one thing," Wade agreed. "Moving into position. This isn't a war, it's an execution." The night erupted with newfound fury as El Fantasma unleashed everything he had. Tracer rounds cut through the darkness like deadly fireworks, heavy weapons pounding Wade's positions with devastating force. The cartel commander was applying everything he'd learned in Kandahar, but with a savage intensity that showed how far he'd fallen. "West sector's getting hammered," Nash reported. "They're making a serious push." "That's their feint," Wade replied instantly. "Nox, watch the east. That's where their real attack's coming." Sure enough, while one team pushed aggressively from the west, their best operators were moving quietly through the eastern approach. It was a solid tactic, one that would have worked against most opponents. "Count 12, Nox said quietly. "Elite team moving like professionals. These are their best." "Good," Wade replied. "Cyrus, Nash, shift east. Nox, hold your fire until my mark. Let's show them what real professionals can do." The elite cartel team moved with impressive skill, using every bit of cover, maintaining perfect spacing. They were halfway to their objective when Wade sprung his trap. Cyrus's charges illuminated the night, not damaging but disorienting. Before the cartel operators could adjust their night vision, Nox opened fire from his elevated position. Every shot found its mark, not killing but disabling, taking out knees and shoulders with surgical precision. "Clear them up," Wade ordered, and Nash moved in with swift efficiency, securing the wounded operators. El Fantasma's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "You think you know all my tricks, old man? You haven't seen anything yet." A new sound cut through the night. Helicopter rotors. "Boss, they're bringing in air support," Zan warned. "Right on schedule," Wade smiled. "Cyrus?" "Oh yeah, got something special for choppers. Just say when." The helicopter swept in low, its spotlight cutting through the darkness. The door gunner opened up with a minigun, stitching a line of destruction across Wade's property. But the team had prepared for this too. "Now," Wade commanded. Cyrus triggered a specialized charge, not an explosion, but a massive flashbang designed specifically for aircraft. The helicopter pilot, momentarily blinded, yanked the stick back. The sudden move threw off the gunners. Knox's rifle cracked once. The spotlight exploded, plunging the helicopter back into darkness. 2 more precise shots disabled the minigun. "You can land safely," Wade broadcast to the pilot, "or you can crash. Your choice." The helicopter retreated, its pilot choosing wisdom over valor. On the ground, El Fantasma was shouting orders with increasing desperation. His elite team was down, his air support driven off, and his men were losing cohesion. "How many more men are you willing to sacrifice?" Wade asked over their channel. "How many bodies before you realize you've made a mistake?" The response was immediate, a massive barrage of automatic weapons fire. But Wade had already moved, ghosting through the darkness to a new position. 20 years ago, they'd called him Phantom because he could appear anywhere, strike without warning, vanish before the enemy could respond. Tonight, he was reminding them why. El Fantasma's voice cut through the chaos with cold fury. "Burn everything. Burn it all to the ground." His men deployed incendiary weapons, trying to deny Wade's team their carefully prepared positions. The night lit up with phosphorus and thermite, turning the battlefield into a hellscape of fire and smoke. "They're getting desperate," Knox observed, relocating as flames consumed his previous sniper nest. "Making mistakes," Wade warned. "Desperate men are unpredictable." The battle was reaching its crescendo. El Fantasma had brought his best, his most hardened killers, but they were about to learn the difference between killers and soldiers, between thugs with guns and men who had spent decades perfecting the art of warfare. A massive explosion rocked the farmhouse as the cartel deployed satchel charges against the outer walls. The reinforced structure held, but the message was clear. They were done probing and ready to destroy everything. "Sir," Nash called out, "we've got wounded to evacuate. These fires are getting too close to the holding area." Wade processed the tactical situation in seconds. "Knox, cover the east approach. Cyrus, buy us some time. Everyone else fall back to position 3. We're not losing anyone tonight." Cyrus's voice was grim. "Got something special saved for this. Might want to cover your eyes. Multiple explosions chained across the property, but these were different. Magnesium bright, creating walls of light that temporarily blinded anyone looking in their direction. In the confusion, Wade's team executed a fighting withdrawal, moving their prisoners and wounded to a fortified storm cellar they'd prepared for exactly this scenario. "They're pushing hard on the west side," Knox reported, his rifle cracking steadily. "These guys are different. Cartel's elite death squad. I recognize their tactics from the briefings." "Los Fantasmas," Wade confirmed. "El Fantasma's personal. A kill team, ex-Mexican special forces who went rogue. They're good. Not good enough," Knox replied, punctuating his words with precise shots. The death squad moved with fluid grace, using the fires as cover. They were well-equipped, thermal imaging, advanced body armor, military-grade weapons. These weren't cartel thugs. These were professional killers. "Contact!" Zan shouted. 3 death squad members had breached the inner perimeter, moving with lethal precision toward the command center. Wade moved to intercept, but they had him pinned with well-coordinated fire. "Little help here," Wade called out, surprisingly calm, despite the bullets cutting through the air around him. "Working on it," Cyrus replied. The ground erupted beneath the death squad, not with explosives, but with compressed air and dirt, a non-lethal but disorienting blast that broke their formation. Wade capitalized instantly, closing the distance. The fight was brief but brutal. The death squad members were excellent shots, but Wade had spent decades mastering close-quarter combat. The first went down to a throat strike knife disarm combination. The second managed to land a solid hit before Wade's elbow strike found the sweet spot behind his ear. The third proved tougher, clearly their hand-to-hand specialist. "Impressive," the man said in accented English, squaring up with a fighter's stance. "But you're still just an old man." Wade's response was a lightning-fast combination that ended with the specialist unconscious on the ground. "Age and treachery, kid." "We've got a problem," Zan cut in. "They're bringing up something big. Thermals showing. Oh, hell, they've got a technical with a heavy autocannon. The sound of the 20mm cannon split the night, its rounds powerful enough to punch through Wade's reinforced walls. This wasn't about taking the farm anymore. This was about complete destruction. "Knox, can you get a shot?" "Negative. They've got it too well protected. Need a new angle." Wade thought fast. The cannon was devastating, but it had weaknesses. "Cyrus, remember Serbia, that arms depot with the tanks?" "Yeah, that was... Oh, I like where this is going. Can you do it?" "Just like old times, boss." El Fantasma's voice boomed across their comms. "You see, this is what happens to those who resist. We will reduce this place to ash." The autocannon continued its devastating barrage, but Wade had fought against worse. "Zan, patch me into their frequency. Time to explain something to our friend." "Channel's open," Zan announced, and Wade's voice cut across the battlefield. "That's an impressive gun, Russian-made, probably stolen from a military depot. Very effective against buildings, not so great against what's coming." "You're finished." El Fantasma shouted. "Your defenses are breaking!" "Look to your left." The cartel boss did, just in time to see Cyrus's surprise. The old barn, which they thought was just burning, suddenly revealed its secret. The entire structure had been rigged as a massive directional blast, focusing its force right at the technical. The explosion wasn't meant to destroy. That would have been too dangerous. Instead, it created a massive pressure wave that overturned the vehicle, rendering the cannon useless and sending El Fantasma's men scrambling for cover. "That was our excuse to keep things civil," Wade announced. "Push any harder and we stop." "Being nice. Kill them all," El Fantasma screamed, but there was an edge of fear in his voice now. His men were dying or surrendering, his best units were down, and his heavy weapons were being systematically eliminated. "Boss," Nash called out, "got movement in the tree line. Looks like they're bringing up their reserve force." "Good," Wade replied. "About time they committed everything. Knox, you know what to do." The sniper's rifle began its deadly work, not killing, but methodically disabling vehicles, weapons, and equipment. Each shot was calculated to reduce the cartel's options, to force them into predictable responses. "They're pulling back," Zan reported, regrouping around their command vehicle. Wade checked his ammunition, noting the fires still burning across. His property, the farm, was damaged but not destroyed. His team tired but not beaten, and El Fantasma had just made his biggest mistake, consolidating his forces into one location. "All units," Wade commanded, "prepare for final phase. Remember, we're not just defending anymore. Time to show them why you don't bring a cartel to a Delta Force fight." Through his thermal scope, Wade watched El Fantasma's remaining forces bunch up, exactly where he wanted them. The cartel boss thought he was being smart, concentrating his strength. Instead, he just put all his assets in one kill zone. "Execute. Phoenix Protocol," Wade ordered. His team's acknowledgements came in quick succession. They'd drilled this scenario countless times in their active duty days. "Stand by for some fireworks," Cyrus announced. "Those charges we didn't use earlier? They're about to earn their keep." Knox's voice was cold and professional. "Target area mapped. I've got clean shots on their command and control elements." "Remember," Wade reminded them, "we want survivors. They need to carry our message back." The counterattack began with surgical precision. Cyrus's charges detonated in sequence, not to kill, but to isolate. Walls of fire and smoke cut off escape routes, channeling the cartel forces exactly where Wade wanted them. "What are they doing?" El Fantasma demanded, watching his carefully positioned men suddenly trapped in overlapping fields of fire. "Teaching you about real combat," Wade replied over their channel. "Pay attention. This is how professionals work." Knox's rifle spoke first, taking out their communications array with 3 precise shots. Next went their vehicle engines, each disabled with methodical efficiency. The cartel forces were now deaf, blind, and immobile. "You think this changes anything?" El Fantasma shouted, but his voice carried an edge of panic. "I have more men, more resources." "Not anymore," Wade replied as Zan's electronic warfare suite kicked in, flooding their frequencies with static. "Right now, your reinforcements are being intercepted by state police. Amazing what happens when someone provides actionable intelligence about cartel movements." The cartel boss's response was predictable, ordering his men to attack in all directions. But Wade's team had trained for exactly this scenario. They moved like ghosts through the smoke and chaos, appearing and disappearing at will. "Contact. In front!" a cartel soldier screamed, firing at shadows. Wade was already gone, his precise strikes taking down 3 more before they realized where he was. "They're not human," another soldier cried out in Spanish. "They're everywhere. Keep fighting." El Fantasma commanded, but his authority was crumbling. His men were experienced soldiers, but they'd never faced anything like this. An enemy that seemed to materialize from nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish before they could respond. "Sir," Nash's voice crackled over the comms. "There, breaking formation east sector. Starting to run." "Heard them," Wade ordered. "Knox, discourage any heroes." The sniper rifle cracked methodically, rounds impacting at the feet of anyone trying to flee. The message was clear: stay put or get worse. "You're trapped in here with us," Wade broadcast to the cartel forces, "but we're not trapped in here with you. We are the trap." Cyrus's next series of charges demonstrated this perfectly. Careful detonations split the cartel's remaining forces into isolated pockets, each one cut off from support and exposed to precise fire from multiple angles. "Western group is surrendering," Zan reported. "Eastern group is—" "Wait. Movement. By the command vehicle. El Fantasma is making a break for it. Let him run," Wade replied, "right to where we want him." The cartel boss had grabbed 2 of his best remaining men, using the chaos to slip away from the main fight. He moved well. Clearly he hadn't always been just a commander, but Wade had planned for this too. El Fantasma's escape route led him straight into a prepared position. One moment he was running, the next he was face to face with Wade himself. Impressive. "Operation you had here," Wade said conversationally, his rifle trained center mass. "Good men, good equipment, solid tactics, but you made one critical mistake." "And what's that?" El Fantasma snarled, his hand inching toward a concealed weapon. "You thought fear only worked one way. You're used to being the one people fear. Tonight, you learn what real fear feels like." The cartel boss moved fast, drawing his pistol in a practiced motion, but Wade was faster. One precise shot knocked the weapon away, another dropped El Fantasma's remaining guards. El Fantasma charged with a roar, revealing the combat skills that had once made him special forces. His knife appeared like magic, slashing in lethal arcs. But Wade hadn't spent the last 20 years growing soft. The fight was brutal and swift. El Fantasma was good, his technique polished, his strikes deadly. But Wade had written the manual. He'd learned from. Every attack was anticipated, every move countered before it fully developed. "I learned from the best," El Fantasma spat, blood running from a split lip. "You learned the moves," Wade replied, deflecting a thrust and landing a crushing blow. "But you never understood the principles." The cartel boss staggered back, realizing too late the difference between learning tactics and living them. His next attack was desperate, telegraphed. Wade's response was textbook. The same disarm he'd taught Special Forces candidates 20 years ago. El Fantasma went down hard, his own knife at his throat. "The principle," Wade said quietly, "is that we protect people. We don't terrorize them." Around, in them, the battle was ending. Most of the cartel forces had surrendered, realizing the futility of their position. Those still fighting were being systematically isolated and neutralized. "You can't win," El Fantasma gasped. "We'll keep coming. There will always be more." "No," Wade replied, "because you're going to tell them what happened here. You're going to explain why this valley is off limits, and if you don't—" He let the threat hang. El Fantasma, looking into his eyes, saw something that made him shudder. The cold certainty of a man who had spent his life dealing with exactly this kind of threat. Dawn was breaking over the Montana mountains, revealing the full extent of the night's battle. Burning vehicles dotted Wade's property, their smoke mixing with the morning mist. The 37 captured cartel members sat zip-tied in groups, watched over by Nash, while Cyrus and Knox secured the perimeter. The fight was over, but the real work was just beginning. "State Police ETA 3 minutes, Zan reported from his command post. "FBI about 20 minutes behind them. They're very interested in our guests." Wade surveyed his farm, calculating damages with a tactical eye. The barn was scorched but standing. Its reinforced structure had done its job. The house had taken heavy fire but remained structurally sound. His defensive positions, carefully built over years, had proven their worth. "Sir," Nash called out, kneeling beside El Fantasma. "He's stabilized, but he'll need a hospital eventually." The cartel boss looked up at Wade, his arrogance replaced by something closer to respect. "You could have killed us all." "Wasn't the point," Wade replied, checking. "The zip ties. Dead men don't carry messages. You're going to tell every cartel from here to Sinaloa what happened tonight." Police sirens echoed through the valley. Wade turned to his team. "Knox, Cyrus, fade back. No need to complicate things with extra questions. Nash, you're our medic handling prisoners. Zan, wipe everything sensitive. I'll handle the locals." Sheriff Cooper's convoy arrived first, 4 patrol cars and 2 tactical units. The sheriff stepped out, his face a mixture of shock and awe as he surveyed the battlefield. "Jesus Christ, Wade," Cooper breathed. "When we got reports of explosions and gunfire, what happened here?" "Had some uninvited guests," Wade replied calmly. "They didn't take rejection well." Cooper walked the perimeter, taking in the disabled vehicles, the captured cartel members, the precision damage to specific targets. This wasn't just a firefight. This was something else. "They came looking for an easy target," Wade explained. "Found something else instead. Your FBI friends will be interested in this bunch. They're part of the group that's been terrorizing the valley. And the ones we couldn't touch because we could never prove anything?" Cooper's eyes narrowed. "Looks like you got plenty of proof now." Nash approached, medical kit in hand. "Sheriff, got some wounded here that need attention. Nothing critical, but they should see a hospital." Cooper keyed his radio, calling for ambulances. His deputies began processing the scene, their expressions a mix of professional duty and barely concealed amazement. Every cartel member was alive, injured in precise, non-lethal ways that spoke of extraordinary skill. "Your guests have been busy," Cooper noted, examining ID cards and weapons. Mexican Special Forces gear, high-end communications equipment, military-grade weapons. "This is bigger than we thought." "Check the barn," Wade suggested to Cooper. "Found some interesting paperwork. Might help with your other investigations." Zan had planted the intelligence carefully, documents linking the cartel to local crimes, property seizures, and accidents that had plagued the valley. Enough evidence to unravel their entire operation. El Fantasma watched the law enforcement activity with cold eyes. "This changes nothing. The cartel will do exactly what we tell them." Wade cut him off. Because if they don't, next time we won't be so gentle. Imagine what we could do if we actually wanted to kill people. FBI vehicles began arriving. Serious-looking agents in tactical gear, evidence response teams, and senior investigators. Wade noted their approach patterns, their weapon handling. These weren't desk jockeys. They'd sent their A-team. Mr. Thorne, a female agent, approached, her badge identifying her as Special Agent Sarah Martinez. We're going to need a statement about what happened here. Of course, Wade replied. Though it's pretty simple. They came to take my farm. I defended my property. Martinez's eyes swept the battlefield with military precision. Multiple disabled vehicles, wounded suspects showing consistent non-lethal injury patterns, and enough evidence to take down their entire regional operation. That's a night's work. And for one farmer, grew up hunting, Wade shrugged. Got lucky. Lucky. Martinez raised an eyebrow. We've been building a case against these people for months, couldn't get near them. Then in one night, you not only defeat their entire assault, force but hand us actionable intelligence on a silver platter. Sometimes things just work out. We'll need to process the scene. Forensics, photographs, witness statements, you understand. Take all the time you need, Wade replied. Just watch the North Field. Got some unstable ground there after all the excitement. Martinez nodded, recognizing the warning for what it was. Some evidence wouldn't be making it into official reports. Some questions were better left unasked. As law enforcement processed the scene, Wade's hidden team watched from concealed positions. They'd fought in places that didn't exist, conducted operations that would never see paperwork. This was no different.